Imagine transforming your learning speed like never before. Today, we're going to go over some learning hacks used by the world's top performers. Hi, my name is Cade, and I've distilled the secrets of rapid learning into some simple steps that you can apply to your life right now. Stay tuned as we dive into some groundbreaking techniques and timeless wisdom from Aristotle to Napoleon Hill and revolutionize your learning process. First off, set some clear goals and intentions. What do you want to achieve in each practice session? And this can be done by setting SMART goals, which stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. Specific meaning the goal is not vague. So instead of just, I want to get good at playing guitar, you say, I want to learn how to play this song. Measurable, meaning you could see the progress and actually see how far you've developed. Continuing with guitar, you can record yourself playing and see how far along you can get without having to look at the music or how well you could actually play in the first place. Achievable, meaning you're realistically going to be able to keep the enthusiasm to eventually reach your goal. So with guitar, you might want to hold off on trying to learn Eruption as your first song, and maybe start with something like Smoke on the Water. Relevant, meaning there's something that you actually want to achieve. So with guitar, if you don't like playing heavy metal music, don't try and learn those songs. If you much prefer learning country, learn country. Have something that's going to keep you enjoyed and motivated to keep going and pursuing this goal. And lastly, timely. You want to make sure you set a time frame for yourself for how long that you expect this to take to achieve that goal. Now, if your goal isn't timely, you might start experiencing Parkinson's law, which is the law that states when you try to get in a street race with someone because they challenge you, you race them, and then you get in a car accident and they get Parkinson's. Just kidding, that's Back to the Future. Or maybe it's Michael J. Fox, or maybe it's a mix of both. Parkinson's law is basically the time you have to achieve a goal is the amount of time it's going to take you to actually finish that goal. So if you ever had an essay you had to write and you were given a month to write it, for some reason it always seems to take you at least a month to write it. But instead, if you set a personal deadline to finish it in 3 days, you'll finish it in those 3 days. Next is to educate yourself just enough. You want to learn as much as you can to get you started and moving on to the next step. If you hit a plateau, you're able to just break past that plateau, or you know exactly what you need to do. But at the same time, you don't want to go too far with this where you're constantly sitting in front of the computer, looking up YouTube videos of how to get better, when in reality, you just need to start practicing and getting better at it. The secret of getting ahead is getting started. Break down your complex tasks into easy, small, manageable steps. Identify the key components of a skill that give you the most results and start focusing on those. For a lot of things in life, there are 20% of things that give you 80% of the results. This is the 80-20 rule in practice. So finding what that 20% of things are is going to allow you to be more focused, learn a lot faster, and save you a lot of time in the whole learning process. Whenever you get stuck on something, figure out what's holding you back, what is the obstacle that's keeping you from getting forward, and as we talked about the previous step, learn how to get around it, and then get right back to practicing. Optimizing your focus is crucial. Find ways to improve and have laser-like focus, and finding any obstacles that, one, keep you from moving forward, and two, distracting you while you're trying to practice. Use techniques like the Pomodoro Technique, which is basically, you set a 25-minute timer, start practicing, start learning, and after 25 minutes, take a 5-10 minute break and repeat this process for a total of 4 times. Once you've done your 4th time, have a 25-30 minute break, and then keep repeating it. If you can't do 4 25-minute sessions, do 2 or just do 1. Start slowly with the technique and build up. This will help optimize the amount of time you're focusing on it and give your brain those breaks that it does need, as trying to focus for too long will just cause you getting burnt out and not want to continue in the first place. It'll also lower the whole overall quality of your practice. Also, get rid of as many distractions as you possibly can. And for a lot of us, the big one is our phones. And I highly recommend you check out my last video on how to break your phone addiction, as I go into a lot more details and strategies in order to decrease our screen time. Next off, you want to practice deliberately and consistently. Aristotle once said, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit. We need to put the reps in. We don't just go to the gym one time we're fit. We constantly go back and perform rep after rep because it helps build the muscle. This is how learning is, but only difference is it's your brain and not your physical muscles. Target the areas that you struggle in the most and make sure you're constantly setting time up to consistently practice or learning your skill. Next, try to immerse yourself in the learning environment. They say the best way to learn language is being dropped into the middle of the country you're trying to speak the language of and learning from the natives. This might be a little extreme for a lot of us, but a good substitute is just to surround yourself with people who are on the same path, trying to learn or better than you at the skill or topic you're trying to learn. And building on top of this a little more is finding a coach and getting feedback on how you're doing. So having a coach is very valuable because they will be able to guide you very specifically on how you need to progress. They'll see where you're at, where you're lacking the most, and give you guided feedback on how to develop. For a lot of us, we think that we could just learn the skill line by ourselves, but having a coach can make it a little faster because we don't know exactly what we're lacking in. You might be able to figure out some of the things, but having a coach will save us a lot of time, and also we'll be able to learn from their mistakes that they did. And there's also value in having someone to be accountable to. If you have a teacher or two you're going to every week, Every time you come back, you want to show them that you've done a little bit better and you improved and practiced on your own. So having this accountability of the coach will give you the motivation to develop and improve the skill on your own. Something else you should try to do is test yourself. For me, when I was in school and we had a test, and I would get the results back and see the questions I got wrong, I would think to myself, oh, I should have known that. And what that does is it creates this emotional connection.
Emotional content.
That really reinforces this thing that you got wrong. And that failure is reinforced in your brain, and you really remember the right thing to do, the right answer to put down next time. So practicing so you test yourself and see the times that you're actually going to fail, and it'll give you an emotional connection to things you repeatedly get wrong. Now, I'm sure you're ready to get out there and practice nonstop, but another thing to consider is spaced repetition. Every time you practice, it is a good idea to give yourself a break between the practices. Now, obviously, doing it is going to be a great way to learn, but taking time away where you're not physically doing the act, studying, and allow your brain to just play around with the thoughts will help reinforce the connections and cement the ideas in your mind so it's really learned and the neural pathways are better formed. You also want to focus on overlearning and really dialing in the fundamentals. Go beyond the surface of just trying to acquire the skill and really understand why and how certain things are. For instance, with learning a language, you don't just want to learn the vocabulary and have it be that, okay, this word means this in my language. You might think that's the most efficient way because you're just getting down and you're taking it for what it is. But if you really want to cement the vocabulary words in your brain, it might be helpful to look at them in a different way. So instead of just looking at the vocabulary word and saying, this means this in my language, try to figure out where that word comes from. Trace the ancestry of the word, see the connection between your language and that language. For instance, the word learning in Spanish is adquisición. And what is learning but the acquisition of information? Acquisition, learning. Similar concept. Doing this gives you one more way to remember exactly what an idea is in your mind. You'll also learn by analyzing and imitating the experts. Watch how masters of the skill work, analyze their techniques, incorporate their methods into your practice. If you want to become a skilled writer, watch an interview with Stephen King and see how he breaks down the process of writing. Or if you want to become a mixed martial artist, watch a UFC match and see how the fighters do their techniques and how they analyze their opponents. And finally, teach someone else the skill. This kind of comes full circle with once you were the student and now you're the teacher. But really, the teacher is still a student, they're just learning in a different way. Find someone who is learning the same things you are. Maybe they're not as good as you, maybe you know something that they don't, and they know something that you don't. This will not only help reinforce the concepts of the idea in your brain, but it also show you the holes in your thinking that you really need to focus on and develop more. Even if you don't have anyone around that you could teach, the Feynman technique is a great substitute. The Feynman technique is where you break down the whole process of what you learned and try to teach it to a child who has no idea at the very beginning to the end of the process. Try and teach them so they can understand every detail and be as clear and concise as possible. Go through the whole topic, don't miss any details, and when you find things that you can't fully explain yourself, you realize that's the areas you need to focus on in order to fully flesh out your concept of the skill or information. And a good way to help other people learn a topic is by liking and sharing this video so more people can see it. So there you have it, strategies to master any skill. Embrace the techniques, stay consistent, and enjoy the journey.